Broken Families. This is a song that I wrote after I had visited the region, looked at sort of the coal area, the prison, the mansion, and really started to contemplate the women. And what does that mean, especially in a sort of culture and environment where men had the right to vote, but women kind of didn't yet unless they were born there, and most of them were not. And they had huge families. And I read a book called Aaron's Daughters in America by Hasia Diner, which I thought was really informative. And this idea that sort of the Irish coming over at the time, the girls weren't allowed to go to the boys' Catholic school. And so the nuns created their own schools, and they were sort of better. So then the boys got to go to the girls' schools. And sort of all this gender back and forth was something I was really thinking about. And I felt like I was on a historical journey, trying to really dredge up something that hadn't been spoken of. And Kevin Kenny's book, Making Sense of the Molly Maguires, there's about 4 sentences in there about a place called Wigan's Patch, which I had not found out about when I was writing the lyrics for the whole piece. But what happened was it suddenly became my story too. And that's something I can't quite explain. I don't know how that happened. But in the jail, there's a handprint on the wall, and this legend around it says that Alexander Campbell, one of the condemned, sort of ground his hand into the floor and then pressed it in the wall and said, "This will be proof of my innocence." And more than a century later, the print is still there, and if they scrape it off, it'll reappear. And it was once a story in the National Enquirer. And so that got me thinking back again to the mythology and the power of storytelling and that kind of tradition. And then that, again, brought up my own personal issue of what is my story. And so the piece became framed by a very specific story that's fairly autobiographical. That shocked me. And so to write about broken families, and to write about sort of seeing this man through time and thinking about his wife making this long procession, and the woman who tried to get a stay of execution, but they wouldn't open the door during the hangings, and just all of these extreme stories, and what were these women going through, and what is the legacy, of the child left behind, really. All of that was just spinning, and this is the song that came up. And if you didn't know, Alan Scott wrote all the music of every incarnation of everything, initially 3 hours of pretty much solid music. So thank you, Alan. And this is Broken Families, and I like to think of it as a triumphant song, that if we keep telling stories, there is sort of this kind of eternity that lives in that.
Some